Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on something pretty much everyone has dealt with at some point.
Mhm.
Dry, chapped lips.
That tight, flaky feeling, yeah.
Yeah,
Not fun.
exactly. We've gone through quite a bit of information to give you the straight story on why it happens. It could be everyday habits, maybe environmental stuff, or even some less obvious culprits.
Things like allergies or sometimes even underlying health things.
Right. So our mission here is to arm you with the knowledge to not just heal that discomfort, but hopefully prevent it from coming back.
And do it without making your head spin with overly technical jargon.
Precisely. If you've ever felt just overwhelmed by all the different lip balms and advice out there, well, you're definitely in the right place today.
It's true. We often just brush off chapped lips as, a minor annoyance, especially when it gets cold or windy.
Yeah, just a winter problem.
But actually, what's happening with your lips can be a pretty useful clue about your overall health, or maybe just your daily routine.
So there's a medical term for this, right?
There is. It's called cheilitis. Basically, it just means inflammation of the lips. And it's not just a winter thing, like you said. It can pop up anytime, short-term, or even become a longer-term issue.
Okay, so cheilitis. If our lips are starting to feel, well, less than great, what are the signs we should look out for? What tells us we're in chapped lip territory?
Well, the symptoms can really vary quite a bit. It might start subtly, just feeling a bit dry,
Okay.
but then it can progress to actual cracking, peeling or flaking skin. You might see some redness, too.
Hmm.
And some people feel a burning or stinging sensation, or maybe tingling, even itchiness.
Ow.
In more sort of severe cases, you could get swelling, perhaps some bleeding if the cracks are deep, or little sores.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the texture can feel rough, kind of scaly. And occasionally, though it's less common, people might even report a bit of numbness.
Wow. Okay, that sounds genuinely uncomfortable. So, what are the usual suspects, the everyday things that trigger this?
Well, we can point to a few really common ones. Environmental factors are huge.
Like the weather.
Exactly. Dry air, cold air, wind. Also, low humidity indoors, like when the heating is cranked up in winter. That really pulls moisture out.
Right.
And here's one people often forget: sun exposure.
Ah, yes.
It's not just a summer beach thing. UV rays are damaging year-round, even on cloudy winter days. Sun exposure can definitely worsen chapping. And for some folks, it can even trigger cold sores.
So, lip sunscreen isn't just for vacation.
Absolutely not. Year-round protection is key.
Okay, what else in our day-to-day lives might be setting our lips up for trouble?
Dehydration is a major one, a really big one.
Right.
See, our lips don't have oil glands like the rest of our skin. They're quite unique in that way.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if your body isn't getting enough water overall, your lips are often one of the first places to show it. They dry out much more easily.
Makes sense. What about habits? Things we do without thinking.
Oh, definitely. Licking your lips is a classic example. It feels like you're moisturizing them for a second, right?
Yeah, temporary relief.
But as that saliva evaporates, it actually draws more moisture away from the lips, making the problem worse in the long run.
The opposite effect.
Exactly. And then there's picking at flakes or biting your lips. That just causes irritation, maybe little wounds, and it really slows down the healing process.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all do it.
Yeah.
Another slightly less common one is contact with certain metals. Holding things like jewelry, paper clips, maybe even pen caps against your lips can be irritating for some individuals.
So interesting.
And finally, mouth breathing. If you tend to breathe through your mouth, especially at night, that constant airflow over the lips is very drying.
That covers quite a few bases. Now, what about the actual products we put on our lips? Can things like lip balm sometimes backfire?
Well, absolutely. It's a bit ironic, isn't it? But yeah, some lip products contain ingredients that can actually cause irritation or make existing dryness worse.
So what should we be looking out for on the ingredients list? What are the potential troublemakers?
Okay, based on the information we looked at, there are several ingredients to be wary of. Things like camphor, eucalyptus, menthol.
The ones that often give that cooling or tingling feeling?
Precisely. Also, various flavorings, especially things like cinnamon, citrus, mint, and fragrances can be irritating. Lanolin is another one some people react to.
Okay.
Certain sunscreen chemicals, specifically octinoxate and oxybenzone, can sometimes cause issues. And then there's phenol, propyl gallate, and salicylic acid.
Salicylic acid, like in acne treatments.
Yeah, it's an exfoliant, but it can be too harsh for delicate lip skin.
Yeah.
A key thing to remember is if a lip product makes your lips burn, sting, or tingle strongly when you apply it,
Yeah,
that's usually a sign of irritation. It doesn't mean it's working better. It's more like a warning signal from your lips.
got it. Red flag. strong tingling or burning. So, if those are the things to potentially avoid, what ingredients should we be looking for? What actually helps?
You want to look for ingredients that moisturize, protect, and help repair the skin barrier. Things like castor seed oil, ceramides, those are great for barrier repair.
Ceramides, okay?
Dimethicone, which creates a protective barrier. Hemp seed oil, mineral oil, petrolatum, that's the key ingredient in Vaseline, or petroleum jelly.
Ah, good old petroleum jelly.
Yep, it's very effective. Shea butter is another good one. Generally, think thick, bland emollients. White petroleum jelly, for instance, is excellent for really dry, cracked lips because it seals in moisture so well.
And what about allergies?
Good point. If you have sensitive skin or suspect allergies, definitely look for products labeled hypoallergenic and fragrance-free. That minimizes the risk of a reaction.
Makes sense. Keep it simple. And we mentioned sun protection earlier. Let's circle back to SPF in lip products. How important is that?
It's incredibly important, non-negotiable really. You should be using a lip balm with an SPF of 30 or higher.
SPF 30 minimum. Got it.
And ideally, look for ones that use mineral sunscreens like titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. They tend to be less irritating for sensitive lip skin and offer broad spectrum protection.
UVA and UVB.
Exactly. And use it year-round, not just in summer. Cloudy days, winter days, the UV rays are still there. It prevents sun damage, which contributes to chapping, and can help prevent those cold sore flare-ups too.
And reapplication is key, I assume.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you're outdoors for any length of time, reapply every couple of hours, just like you would with regular sunscreen.
Okay. Now, you sometimes see lip balm and sometimes lip ointment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a real difference? When should we use which?
Yeah, there's a difference, mainly in texture and formulation.
Mm-hmm.
Ointments like that white petroleum jelly we mentioned are generally thicker, greasier.
Oh.
They create a more substantial barrier and really lock in moisture, staying put longer. So they're often better for very dry, cracked, or painful lips, think intensive repair.
Right, the heavy-duty stuff.
Exactly. Lip balms are usually lighter, often wax-based, and provide good general maintenance, moisturization, and protection for everyday use. So maybe balm for daytime maintenance, ointment for overnight repair, or when things are really bad.
That's a helpful distinction. And how often should we be applying this stuff? Is there such a thing as too much?
It's hard to overdo it with a good, bland balm or ointment. The general advice is to apply it several times throughout the day whenever your lips feel dry.
And definitely before bed.
Absolutely. Applying it before bed allows it to work undisturbed overnight. If you're aiming for prevention, maybe getting into the habit of applying it, say, 6 to 8 times spread throughout the day is a good goal. After eating, after drinking, after washing your face.
Got it. Be consistent. Okay, we've covered a lot of the common ground,
Yeah.
but our research also pointed to some less obvious reasons for chapped lips. Let's dive into those surprises.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting because sometimes the cause isn't immediately apparent. One major category here is allergic reactions.
Allergies on your lips.
Yep. It's called allergic contact cheilitis, or ACC. Just like your skin elsewhere can react to things, so can your lips. And the list of potential triggers is quite long.
Like what?
Well, think about things that touch your mouth or are used in your mouth. Toothpaste ingredients, mouthwash, flavoring in dental floss, maybe even denture cleaner.
Wow. Everyday stuff.
Totally. Fragrances in cosmetics or skincare products that might migrate to the lips. Certain topical medications, the antibiotics neomycin and bacitracin, are known culprits.
Okay.
Metals can be a trigger too, nickel in dental work or braces, or even from playing certain musical instruments with metal mouthpieces.
Huh. Never thought of that.
Sunscreens, we mentioned some chemical ones earlier. Certain foods are common triggers like citrus fruits and cinnamon. An ingredient called propylene glycol, which is in tons of cosmetics and foods. Rubber or latex, like in gloves if you happen to touch your mouth.
Right.
And even ingredients within lipsticks, things like castor oil, shellac dyes, preservatives, even sesame oil or ozonated olive oil in some natural products.
That is a huge list. How would you even begin to figure out if it's an allergy versus just, say, the dry weather? What does ACC look like?
The symptoms can overlap with regular chapped lips, but often with ACC, you might see more pronounced swelling and general inflammation.
More puffy.
Yeah, possibly. Along with the dryness and scaling, you might get fissuring, those painful cracks. Crusting, especially right at the corners of the mouth, that's called angular cheilitis, and allergies can cause it.
Okay, the corner cracks.
Burning and significant itching are also more common hallmarks of an allergic reaction compared to simple dryness.
Itching, right?
Sometimes the pattern gives a clue. Like, if the reaction is sharply defined to where your lipstick is applied or where a musical instrument touches, and in some rare cases there can even be changes in the lip's pigmentation, a darkening or lightening.
Okay, so inflammation, maybe corner cracks, definitely itching. Those are clues it might be more than just dryness. What other hidden causes did our sources mention?
Nutrient deficiencies are another one that can fly under the radar.
Like not getting enough vitamins.
Exactly. Deficiencies in certain nutrients can manifest as lip problems, specifically low levels of iron, zinc, folate, that's vitamin B9, riboflavin B2, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12 have all been linked to cheilitis.
Which one specifically?
Angular cheilitis, those cracks at the corners, is quite strongly associated with iron deficiency, but also B vitamin issues.
Interesting.
And these deficiencies often don't exist in isolation. You might have other symptoms too, like with iron deficiency, maybe pale skin, brittle nails, fatigue. With zinc, perhaps issues with immunity, skin problems, hair loss. B vitamin deficiencies can cause a whole range of symptoms, from dermatitis to fatigue to mood changes.
So the lips are like a little warning sign.
They can be, yes. People with absorption problems like celiac disease or Crohn's disease might be more at risk,
Hmm.
and vegans or vegetarians need to be mindful of B12 intake, as is primarily found in animal products.
It's amazing how interconnected everything is, from diet to lips. What else? Any other curveballs?
Infections are another possibility. Sometimes what looks like severe chapping might actually be an infection.
Like bacterial or viral?
Both. Bacterial infections like impetigo can sometimes present with honey-colored crusts around the mouth and lips. Viral infections, most famously the herpes simplex virus causing cold sores or fever blisters, are obviously a common lip issue.
Right, cold sores.
And yeast infections, like oral thrush or candidiasis, can also affect the lips, sometimes linked to saliva pooling, maybe from dentures or mouth breathing.
Okay. And what about more serious underlying conditions?
Yes, it's important to mention that sometimes persistent, severe chapped lips that don't respond to usual treatments could be a sign of an underlying systemic issue. Things like autoimmune disorders, thyroid problems, or inflammatory bowel disease, particularly Crohn's disease, can sometimes manifest with lip symptoms.
So it's not always just skin deep.
Not always. It warrants investigation if it's persistent.
We also saw notes about food reactions beyond allergies and medications. Can you elaborate?
Sure. So, separate from true allergies, some common food flavorings can simply be irritating to the lip surface. Think cinnamon, citrus oils, peppermint, spearmint. Even prolonged contact with very salty foods can dehydrate the lips.
Like licking salt off pretzels.
Potentially, yeah.
Hmm.
And then medications, there's quite a list of drugs known to potentially cause dry lips as a side effect.
Such as?
Things like certain antibiotics, diuretics, water pills, cholesterol-lowering statins, retinoids, which are common in acne treatments like isotretinoin or anti-aging creams.
Ah, the retinoids.
Yeah, they're known for dryness. Also, some chemotherapy drugs, high doses of supplemental vitamin A, and even medications like digoxin for heart conditions or lithium used in mental health.
So it's worth checking side effects if you start a new medication.
Definitely. And even something like regular alcohol consumption can contribute because it leads to dehydration overall.
Right, dehydration again. And then there was something mentioned that sounded quite serious, a precancerous condition.
Yes, this is really crucial to be aware of. It's called actinic cheilitis.
Actinic cheilitis.
It typically affects the lower lip, which gets more sun exposure over a lifetime. Looks like persistent dryness, scaling, maybe some thickening or cracking that just doesn't heal, even with consistent lip balm use.
And it's precancerous.
Correct. It's considered a precancerous lesion, meaning if it's left untreated, it has the potential to develop into squamous cell carcinoma, a type of skin cancer.
Wow.
So the take-home message here is, any persistent patch of dryness, roughness, scaling, or a sore on your lip, especially the lower lip, that doesn't heal within, say, a few weeks, absolutely needs to be evaluated by a doctor or dermatologist. Early detection makes a huge difference.
That is incredibly important information. Okay, this has been so enlightening, covering so many potential causes.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift to solutions. What can we actually do to treat chapped lips and get some relief?
Well, the first step, logically, especially if you suspect an allergy or irritation from a product, is identification and avoidance. Try to pinpoint the trigger and remove it.
Easier said than done sometimes, with that long list.
True. But beyond that, a lot hinges on good self-care habits. We've touched on them, but it bears repeating. Stay well hydrated by drinking enough water. Consciously make an effort to stop licking, picking, or biting your lips. That cycle has to be broken.
Right. Break the habit.
Using a humidifier in your bedroom or office, especially during dry seasons, or if you use heating or air conditioning a lot, can add moisture back into the air, which helps your lips indirectly.
Good tip.
And if your lips are feeling particularly itchy or inflamed, sometimes applying a cool compress can offer some temporary relief.
Simple, but potentially effective.
Yeah.
What about things we can buy, like over-the-counter treatments?
For inflammation, a low-potency topical corticosteroid, like a 1% hydrocortisone cream, can sometimes help calm things down.
Hydrocortisone, okay.
But it's generally advised not to use it on the lips for more than maybe a week without checking with a doctor, as steroids can thin the skin over time.
Use with caution.
Exactly. And then, of course, consistent use of those good lip balms or ointments. The emollients with beneficial ingredients like petrolatum, shea butter, dimethicone is absolutely fundamental. Reapply frequently.
The ones without the irritating stuff.
Precisely. For more persistent inflammation or itching, where maybe hydrocortisone isn't appropriate or enough, a doctor might prescribe something called a topical calcineurin inhibitor, or TPI. These are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory creams or ointments.
Okay, prescription options.
Right. And never forget that SPF lip balm daily as part of treatment and prevention. Protecting lips from the sun helps them heal and prevents further damage.
SPF, SPF, SPF. Got it. Are there any home remedies that people find helpful? Maybe some DIY approaches?
Yes, there are a few gentle things you can try, but always be cautious. Gentle exfoliation can sometimes help remove dead, flaky skin so moisturizers can penetrate better.
How would you do that gently?
You can mix a tiny bit of fine sugar or sea salt with a little honey or a safe oil, like coconut oil, and very gently massage it onto the lips, then rinse off. Don't scrub hard.
Very gently. Keyword.
Absolutely. Then follow immediately with a good moisturizer. Speaking of which, some natural ingredients are often suggested. Coconut oil has good barrier properties and is anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
Aloe vera gel can be soothing and anti-inflammatory too, and it has some mild exfoliating properties, but some people can be sensitive to it, so maybe patch test first and don't overdo it.
Use sparingly.
Honey is another popular one. It's moisturizing, antimicrobial, and a mild exfoliant. But again, if you have pollen or bee venom allergies, maybe skip the honey.
Good point about allergies.
Avocado butter or oil is very rich in fatty acids and antioxidants, making it a good emollient. And back to basics. Plain old petroleum jelly is fantastic at sealing in moisture over damp lips or over another moisturizer. Just maybe avoid it on actively sunburned lips, as it can trap heat.
Okay, lots of options there. This is all really practical advice. But when does it reach the point where self-care isn't enough? When should someone definitely seek professional help from a doctor or dermatologist?
That's a really important question. You should consider seeing a professional if your chapped lips just aren't improving after, say, 2 to 3 weeks of consistent home care, using bland balms, avoiding licking, staying hydrated, etc.
So if it's sticking around despite your best efforts.
Exactly. Or if the symptoms are getting noticeably worse instead of better.
Okay.
Any signs of infection like increased redness, swelling, pain, bleeding, or any kind of oozing or pus definitely warrant a doctor's visit.
Infection signs, AC a doctor, right?
Also, if the problem keeps coming back frequently, even if it clears up temporarily, that suggests there might be an underlying trigger that needs identifying, like an allergy or deficiency.
Recurring issues need investigation.
Yes. An allergist or dermatologist might recommend patch testing in those cases to try and pinpoint contact allergen.
Patch testing, okay.
And certainly, if you have really severe symptoms, deep, painful cracks, especially at the corners, angular cheilitis that won't heal, or if you notice any unusual lumps, bumps, ulcers, or persistent white patches on your lips, get it checked out promptly. That could indicate something needing specific medical treatment, including ruling out that actinic cheilitis we talked about.
Lumps, ulcers, white patches, definitely see someone.
Absolutely. And finally, if you have reason to suspect dehydration or a potential nutrient deficiency might be contributing based on other symptoms or your diet, discussing it with your primary care doctor is a good idea. Basically, trust your gut. If regular lip balm isn't cutting it and it's persistent, it's worth getting a professional opinion.
That's really clear guidance, thank you. So to kind of wrap this all up, what are the main things you hope listeners take away from our deep dive today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that while chapped lips are super common and often caused by simple, fixable things like the environment or habits, they can sometimes be more complex.
Multifactorial, as they say.
Exactly. Simple solutions like using the right lip balm consistently, protecting from the sun, and staying hydrated are often very effective. Don't underestimate the basics.
But don't ignore persistent problems either.
Precisely. Pay attention to your body. If your lips are constantly chapped despite good care, or if you see any concerning changes, it could be a signal that something else needs addressing, whether it's an allergy, a deficiency, or another underlying issue. Don't hesitate to seek medical advice in those cases.
That's excellent advice. So, for you, our listener, maybe the final thought is to just pay a little closer attention. Look at your daily habits, check the ingredients in the products you use routinely. Your lips might actually be trying to tell you something important.
It's about being proactive and aware.
Maybe take a moment to research common allergens in your lip or dental products. Reflect honestly on your water intake, or even look up symptoms of nutrient deficiencies if chronic chapped lips are something you constantly battle. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.